Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Phyllis Barone, Michigan golfer. I had the pleasure of speaking today with Greg Johnson, an outstanding true journalist from Grand Rapids, Michigan, who I've known for over 20 years. Greggy and I probably have one of the longest ongoing bets between two fellow golfers. And of course, I will argue that I'm at least one up every year, and he has to give me strokes, more strokes, right, Johnson?
Strokes, it makes me want to have a stroke. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing how many strokes you've received, but it's okay. I move along. I feel like I've won my share, even though it always feels like my wallet's lighter after I play around with Phyllis.
As it should be. So anyway, Greggy, what inspired you to be a journalist?
It really was something that just came about from being a sports nut as a kid, reading everything I could, playing baseball, and having a dad who coached, and wanting to be the next great Detroit Tiger if I could be, someday. But eventually, in school, teachers pointed me towards English and history and things like that they knew I could do, and because I wasn't really great in math class, but. And it just kind of evolved from there. I started in school newspapers and then realized I could have a career in sports. I could be a sports writer. And so I really started pointing towards that about ninth grade and just stayed on that path.
So what sports did you cover? We know that you covered golf and some other things, but what did you cover while you were at the Grand Rapids Press?
Yeah, I was there for 29 years. I covered everything. I mean, some of my first assignments, I was a stringer for a year. Really, I was there 30 years, but my first year I covered, a dartboard tournament and,
wow.
Anything you could think of, I covered it. I'd go out and do man on the street interviews and crazy stuff like that. But then I over the years, I became a columnist. So then I did whatever they wanted a column on. So I did most of the pro sports. Towards the end of my career, I was doing national beats, and which for M Live, what is the Booth newspaper division, Grand Rapids Press, M Live, what it's known now. I did, everything. I did the Lions for 16 years. I did every game. I saw every game of Barry Sanders' career except one, I think, and
wow,
and that kind of thing. So I did a Pistons. I did the Bad Boys. I was a columnist who traveled with Dean Howe, the beat writer, and did the Bad Boys. So a lot of different things, but. And golf was always something I gravitated towards in the summer, even though I'd been a baseball writer early in my career. I found that was kind of boring when you weren't playing, and golf was much more to my liking as something I would cover. It was longer days, but somehow I just fit with golf, and I loved to golf, and I'd grown up, Arnie Palmer was my hero. And so it kind of went from there.
Well, you attended several Masters, and can you share like one of your best stories you covered while in Augusta, or maybe one that you didn't?
I would say there's several. The most memorable maybe is Greg Norman collapsing when he finally had his chance to win one, and then he shot like 76 the last round, and it was impossible to believe. I remember walking with Bob Verdi, who was the Chicago Tribune columnist and a friend of mine, and he joked about how it had turned into a Cub game. Watching Greg Norman at the Masters had turned into a Cub game disaster, and that ended up being a lead line in his column next day. I'm so thankful I didn't steal it. It would have looked like I was copying Bob Verdi, but it was. And then there was, all the great Masters. When Arnie's last Masters, I was there for that, his last round, and we talked about that, and he, and he was such a hero of mine, and to see him up there on the stage crying and what he was going through, and to and think about what all he'd seen and done for golf, and that was really special to me. That was great. And then I had a guy, a Grand Rapids guy that I talked into letting me tell his story about. He had a friend who had had a bad car accident and gone into a wheelchair, and they had growing up, they had played all kinds of golf together and had been really close friends. And he had this plaque that he had gotten after the man passed away, and years later, but they had always stayed friends, and they had always talked about going to the Masters together. Well, and this guy named Teddy, who I won't give his full name, but Teddy had a memorabilia piece that made him remember his friend, and there was a walnut from a plaque, and he wanted to do something special at Augusta with that walnut, and he ended up sneaking out there early in the morning. He got tickets one year, and he came, and I knew he was there, and I talked him into letting me tell the story about him going out early in the morning before there was anybody at the 16th hole with that beautiful pond, and he tossed the walnut in and
Oh,
laid it to rest, basically. So
wow.
it was a really touching story, and it meant a lot. And the gymnastics we had to go through to get him to tell the story and be okay with it being told were really tough, because it was a really personal to him, and he was weeping the whole time. So it was just one I'll always remember, writing and being so thankful that someone opened their soul to me, because it was just a great story to tell.
Well, I've seen you guys at work in the press room, Greggy, and like I said, I do call somebody like you, as well as some of your other colleagues, true journalists. How do you guys keep all that stuff in your brain and like just transfer it on paper, or make a story out of it?
It comes with experience and heartache, and I've written entire stories before and dropped my computer, and I had just a couple of years ago, a guy spilled a bottle of water on my computer, and it was before I had started writing. Thankfully, I didn't have to rewrite, but I had nothing
Oh,
to write
no.
on. I borrowed a computer from essentially the waiting room of a hotel, and wrote my story on that, and recreated it really into the night to get that done. But those kind of things would happen, and it was just part of the biz. But you learn over time, you get really experienced. I mean, I remember sending a high school team winning a cross country championship, sending from a phone booth at this back when there were phone booths, with couplers, little phone couplers on the phone, and hoping they would go, because any kind of noise would screw those transmissions up. And he's
Wow.
doing the old beep beep stuff, and you're just praying it goes through, because you don't want to try it again, and you don't want to lose it off this silly little laptop thing you had, and so you go through all those, and that's the hard part. The actual writing part is just a skill I guess I'm blessed to have. I never thought I was a good writer. I always thought I was a pretty good reporter. I had a way of getting people to tell me their stories and talk them into things. And I'm a good schmoozer, I guess. But I don't know, who knows? I had enough writing ability to pull it off, and I'm still faking people out today.
Well, there you heard it, right from the mouth of Greg Johnson, a true sports reporter from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Such a pleasure speaking with you today, Greggy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.